Well, hey there, you're on the internet, I have some free time, and welcome to the Triple N Network, where all you newbie nib nerds can find all the news you'll need. Let's look at an ink today, shall we? Now, today's ink is from when I asked you kind viewers to vote on what reviews you'd like to see before I leave, and this was another one that got an enormous amount of votes. It's, here I have it in sample form, but I actually got 3 vials of this from my mysterious benefactor, for which I'm eternally grateful because I'm really enjoying this ink. This is part of Diamine's 150th anniversary. This is Terracotta. It's a lovely brown. I mean, it is a brown. It's a terracotta brown. It's almost got little hints of red in it. It's almost got little hints of oranges in it. It's fantastic. So, spoiler alert, where I'm going on my trip is actually Italy, because what I studied in college was art and art history and all that good stuff, particularly Italian history and art, so I'm very familiar with terracotta, and that's definitely what this evokes. It evokes those roof tiles and those patio tiles, and they're just gorgeous. So, big fan of this ink, very grateful, highly suggest you at least get a sample, but let's check it out. So all the tests were done in this Pilot Kaküno, you know, one of those smiley nibs, and as you might be able to see, there's an M on the nib for medium, but this is a very, very fine nib. Again, Pilot is a Japanese brand, so their mediums are more like a Western fine. And in my only Pelikan, and I love this Pelikan. It's one of the M200s, but, hope you can see that, it's their Italic nib. And I absolutely love this nib. Like many Pelikans, it's very, very wet. And, in fact, I think, oh yeah, it's still in there. God, look at that gorgeous wet flow. Look at this. Man, I really like this pen. I know they're not easy to find, especially with the Italic nib anymore, but really great. Check out the chromatography. As you can see, there's definitely some orange and some red in this, but it's still a very genuine brown. Like many Diamine inks, it's not terribly water resistant, but yeah, there's a little hint of something down there. A lot of it washes away, and I don't know if you'll be able to see this, but there's almost this tiny, almost like a tarnished gold color of a halo right up at the top. And here's the dried version, which is not how you're supposed to do it, but as you can see, that dot at the bottom is just a touch darker. The rest is all the same. I thought I'd compare it to some other kind of unique almost browns, or browns that have something else going on in them. So, of course, including that mess I just made up the top. Here's Diamine's Terracotta. Toucan Sienna, which is a little bit lighter and has a little touch more orange in it. And actually there's something really intriguing about this, because if you've been to Sienna, their terracotta is just slightly different from the rest of Tuscany, so I really enjoyed seeing that. But anyways, here's Stipula's Sepia, much more of a genuine brown. And Géabon's Café des Îles, which means coffee of the islands, I believe. I don't know, I never learned French. They made me take sign language, it's not my fault. Anyways, again, a more genuine brown, a little lighter, more shading, because this is slightly watery of an ink, but that's for another time. Top down in density, Clairefontaine, 90 grams per square meter. I'm going to try and get this real still for you to look. Look at that gorgeous color. So good. My camera's turning it slightly more orangey. I may have to correct that in post. So when you see it, it will be more accurate. Now, as you may see up here, it's a bit darker than where it is below. That's because this cap on the Kaküno, it's not terribly secure. Like, I don't know if you can hear that. So it did evaporate a tiny bit in there, so it condensed, and that's why it's darker. But also because it's darker, I'm going to try and get this on camera, you get a little bit of sheen that we're not going to see again for a bit, but it's there. God, look at that, it's gorgeous. Now, the fine took 12 seconds to dry, but I think that might have been partly because I hadn't fully flushed out what had started to dry in there. But yeah, the Italic nib, which is a Pelikan, and so it's wet, that still only took 16 seconds, so that was rather nice. This is a really well-behaved ink. The color is fantastic. The shading is gorgeous. I really enjoyed it. There's no bleed, no feather, no spread. There's really no echo, but this isn't the darkest ink, and this is very dense paper, so here we go. Diamine, not a lot of water resistance. You can kind of see what's still under there, but it did make a bit of a mess, so that is definitely something to be aware of. Next is Rhodia, 80 grams per square meter, where you can see by now I kind of worked it out of the Kaküno, and you still get great shading in there. Lovely color. Look at that. Isn't that gorgeous? Now, obviously, there's the drying time difference. I'm just going to call it a fine, because throughout here I essentially call it a fine. The Kaküno is a Japanese medium, so it's more like a Western fine, dried in 6 seconds. The Italic took 13. Just gorgeous, lovely color. So enjoyed this. I said here it's probably like a 5.5 out of 10. I'd say that's right. You don't have to like really coax it out of the pen. It'll just go. Very well behaved in that regard. Again, not the best water resistance. Made a bit of a mess. A lot of since the Italic nib put more ink down, there was, more to wash away and remain. So, no bleed, no feather, no spread, not a lot of echo, but again, not the darkest ink, not the thinnest paper. Now, here's Tomoe River, where I feel like because of the cream color of the paper, it took on a slightly oranger tone. But yeah, still just lovely. God, look at that color. It's gorgeous. Now, the fine here, the Japanese medium took 7.5 seconds. The Italic took 24, but also I feel like I should point out that 2 of those downstrokes ended up merging, so Now, I hope I can get this on camera. Do you see that halo around the really dark spots in the scrubbies? There's gold sheen there. It's like that dark tarnished gold that I was trying to point out before that probably didn't come through, but it's there, and it's all throughout the words. It's haloing, especially in the Italic, but it's also in the dots and in the bottom of the downstrokes in the Pilot Kaküno. It's a gorgeous kind of effect. I mean, this almost looks like an old copper on this paper, and then with this sort of the dark gold halo thing going on. It's a gorgeous combination. Really enjoyed it. Tomoe River has its thing about dry times, but I feel like you should be conscious of that when you're going into using this paper, so you need the patience. Again, because more ink was put down in the Pelikan, more remained, but still not a lot. That would be very difficult to recover. Here is the world's worst 20-pound copier paper, where I only used the Kaküno, and I feel like you can really tell the line width difference, just how much it spread and broadened, and I mean really all that shading is gone. It's still a kind of pleasant light brown, but it sort of loses a lot of that effect. 2.5 seconds to dry. And I said there's almost no bleed, which for this paper isn't too bad, but there is a good bit of echo and there's a good bit of feathering. I'm going to try and get this real close and hold it steady. Not great. And for what is essentially a Western fine nib and one that is really not wet, this is a very moderate nib, I expected better performance. But because this paper is so darn absorbent, it's hard to wash it all out. So that is a pretty dark water test. However, there is some feathery exploding action going on. So next is Mead Notebook Paper, where again, I really only used the Pilot Kaküno, where again, it outperformed the world's worst 20-pound copier paper. Like you see here, there's still shading in the scrubby. And there's still some in the writing as well. Now, this took 2.5 seconds to dry, but yeah, there is some echo. There is some okay, that was with the Italic, so. But the only place we really see problems is here along the edge, which makes me think it has something to do with the pressing process. However, there is some spread. Oh, no, there isn't. Oh yeah, no, it's good. God, I gotta read my notes more carefully before I start filming. Anyways, again, because it's a more absorbent paper, it's harder to wash it all out. However, there is a good bit of dyeing to the page, some feathering and exploding. This paper really hates water. Now, here is modern, accurate Moleskine notebook paper, and it actually didn't do too bad. I primarily only used the Kaküno. However, even up here where I used the Italic to write the name, it's really not too bad. You still get some shading, although you do get some feathers. But what's interesting is you really, proportionally don't get much more bleed than you do throughout. But granted, that is something that Moleskine paper really has a problem with. There's a lot of bleed. But it looks pretty good, right? 6.5 seconds to dry. Still has some of that shading. The color is still like really nice because this is more of a cream colored paper. You get more of that like tarnished-y, coppery sort of thing going on. Really nice. But there is some significant and distracting feathering. I'm going to try and bring this close and hold it real still. Like where you see the word bleed, it gets really kind of, I don't know, it looks like a sheep that hasn't been shorn recently and it's getting a little out of control. So yeah, water test, that's pretty disastrous. Again, because it's still fairly absorbent paper. You can't wash it all out, it seems, but it really feathers and explodes. So, yep, there you go. There's Diamine 150th Anniversary Terracotta. It definitely evokes terracotta. It's such a pleasant shade of brown. Generally very well behaved. Put it in, or I mean, you know, just use it on maybe one step up from the world's worst paper. It's fantastic. Definitely recommend it. Definitely get a sample. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. If you'd like to see more, please subscribe to the channel. And thanks for watching. Bye.